Welcome back, everyone. Today we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating character transformations in all of George R.R. Martin's world. The journey of Brynden Rivers from the cunning and feared Lord Bloodraven in the tales of Dunk and Egg to the mystical three-eyed raven that guides Bran Stark in Game of Thrones. This is a story that spans over a century, involves multiple civil wars, powerful magic, and connects two different eras of Westeros in ways that most fans don't fully appreciate. Let's start by understanding who Bloodraven actually was before he became the withered figure sitting in a cave beyond the wall. Brynden Rivers was born as one of the illegitimate children of King Aegon IV Targaryen, a king so notorious for his debauchery and poor decisions that he was remembered as Aegon the Unworthy. His mother was Lady Melissa Blackwood, a noblewoman from one of the most ancient houses in Westeros. Because both his parents came from noble lines, Brynden was counted among what history calls the Great Bastards. These weren't just any illegitimate children, they were the bastards of a king who on his deathbed made the catastrophic decision to legitimize all of them, setting the stage for decades of civil war and bloodshed. What made Brynden particularly unique was his appearance. He was an albino with milk-white skin, long white hair, and red eyes that seemed to pierce right through anyone he looked at. But the most distinctive feature was the wine-stained birthmark that covered the right side of his face, stretching from his throat up to his cheek. People said it looked like a raven drawn in blood, and that's exactly how he got his nickname, Bloodraven. According to George R.R. Martin himself, the birthmark wasn't perfectly shaped like a raven, but more of a suggestion, like an inkblot test where your mind fills in the details. Still, it was striking enough that no one who met Brynden Rivers ever forgot him. Now, you need to understand that Bloodraven wasn't just defined by his appearance. From a young age, he was trained in all the traditional skills expected of a nobleman in Westeros. He learned swordsmanship, he became an expert archer, and he received the kind of high-level education reserved for those close to the throne. But what truly set him apart was his mind. Brynden was cunning, strategic, and possessed an almost supernatural ability to gather information. Even before anyone knew about his magical powers, whispers spread throughout the realm that Bloodraven could see everything, that he had spies in every corner of Westeros. Let's talk about the Blackfyre rebellions because this is where Bloodraven truly made his mark on history. When King Aegon IV legitimized all his bastards, he created a succession crisis that would haunt the realm for generations. His favorite bastard son, Daemon Blackfyre, believed he had a stronger claim to the Iron Throne than the legitimate heir, Daemon II. Many lords and knights agreed with him, seeing Daemon as a warrior king in the making, someone who embodied the martial prowess and charisma that Daemon seemed to lack. This led to the First Blackfyre Rebellion, a civil war that split the Seven Kingdoms right down the middle. Bloodraven made a choice that would define the rest of his life. He sided with his legitimate half-brother, King Daemon II, and fought against Daemon Blackfyre. This decision was partly political. Daemon was the lawful king after all, but it was also deeply personal. You see, Bloodraven had two half-brothers who would become his greatest rivals. Daemon Blackfyre was one, and the other was Aegor Rivers, better known as Bittersteel. These three men, all bastards of the same father, would spend decades locked in a bitter struggle that shaped the entire realm. The hatred between Bloodraven and Bittersteel ran especially deep. Part of it came from their mothers. Bloodraven's mother was a Blackwood, while Bittersteel's was a Bracken, and these two houses had been feuding for thousands of years. But the real source of their animosity was a woman, their half-sister, Shiera Seastar. Both men loved her desperately. Bloodraven asked her to marry him dozens of times, and while she refused marriage, she did let him into her bed. She had many lovers, but she completely rejected Bittersteel. He never forgave Bloodraven for this, and their personal vendetta became intertwined with the political conflicts tearing Westeros apart. The First Blackfyre Rebellion came to a head at the Battle of the Redgrass Field in 196 AC. This was one of the bloodiest battles in Westerosi history, and it's where Bloodraven earned his reputation as both a brilliant military commander and a ruthless kinslayer. Brynden had formed his own company of elite archers called the Raven's Teeth, and during the battle, he ordered them to rain arrows down upon Daemon Blackfyre and his twin sons. The barrage killed all three of them. Many people called Bloodraven a kinslayer for this act, though technically no one could prove which specific arrow had killed Demon since he was pierced by so many. But Bloodraven wasn't done fighting that day. Bittersteel, enraged by Demon's death, led a ferocious countercharge straight at Bloodraven. The two half-brothers engaged in an epic duel that would be remembered for generations. During this fight, Bittersteel struck Bloodraven across the face, and that's how Brynden lost his eye. From that day forward, he had only one eye, which only added to his mystique and fed into the rumors about his powers. People started saying, "How many eyes does Lord Bloodraven have? 1,000 eyes and one." It was both a reference to his vast spy network and a hint at something more, something magical that most people didn't understand. Although Bloodraven lost an eye, he accomplished his real goal in that duel. He wasn't trying to defeat Bittersteel outright, he was stalling for time, playing defense until reinforcements could arrive. His strategy worked. Prince Baelor Breakspear arrived with fresh troops and caught Bittersteel's forces in a pincer movement. The rebellion was crushed, though Bittersteel managed to escape across the narrow sea where he founded the Golden Company. He would spend the rest of his life plotting to put a Blackfyre on the Iron Throne, and Bloodraven would spend his life stopping those plots. After the rebellion ended, Bloodraven's influence only grew. He served as Master of Whispers and eventually became Hand of the King to Aerys the First Targaryen. Now, King Aerys was more interested in his books than in actually ruling, which meant Bloodraven effectively ran the entire kingdom. He ruled with what people called spies and spells, building a surveillance network so comprehensive that it seemed impossible. Bloodraven had informants everywhere, from the highest lords to the lowest peasants. He knew about plots before they could even get started. And people whispered that he didn't just use ordinary spies. They said he could change his face, turn into a mist, control animals to spy for him, and see through their eyes. Most people dismissed these as just rumors, tales told to frighten children and explain Bloodraven's uncanny ability to stay ahead of his enemies. But Duncan the Tall, the protagonist of the Dunk and Egg stories, had his doubts. While Dunk thought most of the tales were exaggerations, he couldn't deny that Bloodraven had informants absolutely everywhere. What Dunk and most of the realm didn't know was that many of those rumors were actually true. This brings us to the event of the Mystery Night, the third Dunk and Egg novella, where we see Bloodraven in action. The story takes place at a wedding tourney at Whitewall's Castle in 212 AC. What appears to be a simple tournament is actually a cover for the Second Blackfyre Rebellion. Treasonous lords are gathering to crown Demon II Blackfyre, the son of the first demon, as their king. A dragon egg is even offered as a prize, which draws support from those who still believe the Blackfyres are the true royal line. During these events, Duncan the Tall encounters a mysterious knight named Sir Maynard Plum. There's something off about this man. Dunk notices that Maynard's facial features are hard to pin down, almost as if they shift when you're not looking directly at him. He wears a moonstone brooch as big as a hen's egg pinned to his cloak, and Maynard seems to know far too much about what's happening behind the scenes. He defends Bloodraven's actions as Hand of the King with insider knowledge. When someone blames Bloodraven for not stopping Ironborn raids, Maynard immediately explains Bloodraven's strategic reasoning for keeping ships in King's Landing. The truth that Martin strongly implies, but never explicitly states, is that Sir Maynard Plum is actually Bloodraven himself, using magical glamour to disguise his appearance. In the later books, we learn that glamours are a form of magic that involves weaving light and shadow to create illusions. The most powerful glamours are built around a specific object, often a gemstone, which is exactly what Maynard's moonstone brooch would be. At one point in the story, when Dunk sees a figure through the rain, he makes out only a hooded shape and a single pale white eye. Then, as the figure comes closer, the shadowed face beneath the cowl takes on the familiar features of Sir Maynard Plum, and the pale eye resolves into just the moonstone brooch pinning his cloak. This is Bloodraven at his finest. He's not content to sit in King's Landing and receive reports from spies. He goes into the field himself, disguised, walking among his enemies and gathering intelligence firsthand. His magical abilities, which combine his Targaryen blood with the old magic of his Blackwood heritage, allow him to do things that ordinary spy masters never could. He can see through the eyes of animals, particularly ravens and crows. He can enter people's dreams. And he has what's called green sight, the ability to see past, present, and even glimpses of the future. When the conspiracy at White Walls is finally ready to make its move, Bloodraven springs his trap. He appears seemingly out of nowhere with a massive army, 300 of his personal Raven's Teeth, 3 brothers of the Kingsguard, 500 other knights, and 5,000 infantry drawn from the Crown Lands and the Riverlands. The conspirators are caught completely off guard. They're still in the early stages of their plot, just gathering support, and suddenly they're surrounded by an overwhelming military force. This scene perfectly demonstrates why Bloodraven was so feared. In a quasi-medieval world where plots require meeting in person or sending messages by Raven, both of which are slow and leave evidence, Bloodraven somehow knew everything and moved faster than should have been possible. The lords thought they were being clever, meeting at a wedding tournament where their gathering wouldn't seem suspicious. But Bloodraven's spy network, enhanced by his magical abilities to see through animals and possibly enter dreams, meant he was always several steps ahead. During the confrontation at White Walls, we get to see the relationship between Bloodraven and his young kinsman, Prince Aegon Targaryen, better known as Egg. Egg is the 4th son of Prince Maekar and therefore far down the line of succession at this point. He's traveling as a squire to Sir Duncan the Tall, keeping his true identity secret by shaving his head. When Egg finally reveals who he is and confronts Bloodraven, their interaction is fascinating. Egg shows no fear of this man who terrifies most of the realm. He's family, after all, specifically Bloodraven's great-nephew, though Bloodraven casually refers to Egg as his cousin using the broader medieval definition of the term. Egg demands that Bloodraven reward the hedge knights who stood up for what was right, particularly Sir Glendon Ball, who unhorsed Demon 2 Blackfyre in single combat. Bloodraven actually jokes with Egg, telling Dunk that he ought to beat such insolence out of his squire, but then Bloodraven adds something revealing. He says, "Your squire is insolent, but what he is a dragon." This shows us a different side of Bloodraven. Yes, he's ruthless when it comes to protecting the realm and crushing rebellions. He has Gorman Peak beheaded for treason without hesitation. He allows Lord Butterwell to keep only a tenth of his wealth and tears down his castle, but he also has a sense of humor. He rewards those who deserve it as Egg demands, and he recognizes the strength in young Aegon. There's humanity in Bloodraven despite his reputation as a sorcerer and kinslayer. Bloodraven continues to serve as Hand of the King through multiple reigns. When King Aerys dies during the Great Spring Sickness, the same plague that killed many members of the royal family, Prince Maekar, Egg's father, becomes king. Maekar distrusts Bloodraven but keeps him as Hand because he recognizes that Bryndon's skills are invaluable. During Maekar's reign, Bloodraven continues his cold war against the Blackfyres, always watching Tarash, where Bittersteel and the surviving Blackfyre sons remain in exile. The defining moment that changes Bloodraven's fate comes after King Maekar dies in battle against rebellious Dornish lords. A great council is called to decide who should succeed him, as the line of succession has become complicated. Aenys Blackfyre, one of the surviving sons of Demon 8 Blackfyre, sends word from the Free Cities that he wants to put himself forward as a legitimate candidate for the throne. Bloodraven, still Hand of the King at this point, promises Aenys safe passage. It's a sacred promise, one made in the name of the Iron Throne itself. But when Aenys Blackfyre arrives in King's Landing, Bloodraven has the City Watch seize him immediately. He drags Aenys to the Red Keep and executes him, then presents his head to the lords gathered for the Great Council as a brutal warning to any Blackfyre sympathizers. This act, while strategically brilliant and probably preventing another civil war, breaks the most sacred promise a ruler can make. The sanctity of safe passage, the honor of the Iron Throne's word, means nothing if it can be violated so casually. The Great Council ultimately chooses Aegon Faith, the boy we know as Egg, to be the new king, and one of King Aegon V's first acts is to punish Bloodraven for what he did. Egg believes deeply in honor and justice, and while he probably understands why Bloodraven did it, he can't let such a violation stand. So Aegon V sends Bloodraven to the Night's Watch. In 233 AC, Maester Aemon, another Targaryen who had refused the crown years earlier, sails for the Wall. He's escorted by Sir Duncan the Tall of the Kingsguard, Egg's old friend and traveling companion, and accompanied by an honor guard of 200 men and prisoners being sent to take the Black. Among them is Brynden Rivers, along with many of his former Raven's Teeth archers who followed their commander into exile. There's a semi-canon source that suggests Bloodraven took the Valyrian steel sword Dark Sister with him when he went to the Wall, though this has never been definitively confirmed. At the Wall, Bloodraven doesn't just fade into obscurity. In 239 AC, he's elected Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, showing that even stripped of his power and titles, his leadership abilities are recognized. He serves in this role for 13 years. Then, in 252 AC, while ranging beyond the Wall, Bloodraven disappears. The official records say he simply never came back. Most people assumed he died out there in the frozen wilderness, but that's not what happened. Somewhere in those frozen wastes, Brynden Rivers found something, or perhaps something found him. He encountered the Children of the Forest, the ancient non-human inhabitants of Westeros who had supposedly vanished thousands of years ago. These mysterious beings recognized something in Bloodraven. They saw the magical potential that had always been there, fed by both his Targaryen blood and his Blackwood heritage. The Blackwoods, you see, were descendants of the First Men and had always maintained a connection to the old magic, particularly to weirwood trees. The Children of the Forest brought Bloodraven to a cave deep beneath a weirwood tree. And there, Brynden Rivers underwent a transformation that would preserve his life far beyond its natural span, but at a terrible cost. He merged with the weirwood tree itself. Roots grew through his body, through his legs, even through the empty socket where his eye had been. His physical form became withered, almost corpse-like, barely human, but his consciousness expanded beyond anything he had known before. As the three-eyed crow, or three-eyed raven as the show calls him, Bloodraven became the last Greenseer, the final human to possess the full scope of this ancient magic. Let's talk about what this actually means, because greensight is far more powerful than most viewers of the show realize. First, there's the ability to see through the eyes of weirwood trees. Every weirwood with a face carved into it, and there are thousands spread across Westeros, becomes a viewing portal through which a Greenseer can watch. But it goes deeper than that. Through these trees, a Greenseer can see not just the present, but the past, witnessing events that happened centuries or even millennia ago as if they're happening right now. Then there's skin changing, the ability to slip your consciousness into an animal and see through its eyes, control its movements. This is what gave truth to all those rumors about Bloodraven controlling wolves and crows to spy for him. He really could do that, and as the three-eyed crow, this power only grew stronger. Ravens and crows in particular seemed drawn to him, which is perfect for someone who needs to watch over an entire continent. Greenseers can also enter dreams, reaching out across vast distances to plant visions and messages in people's sleeping minds. This is how the three-eyed crow first contacts Bran Stark, appearing in his dreams as a literal three-eyed raven after Bran's fall from the tower. The crow shows Bran visions, teaches him, and gradually draws him north on a journey that will take years. But here's where it gets truly extraordinary. Greenseers have prophetic visions, glimpses of things that haven't happened yet. The future isn't set in stone, and the visions are often symbolic or fragmentary. But a powerful Greenseer can perceive possible futures and work to bring about the outcomes they desire. Combined with the ability to see the past and present anywhere there are weirwoods, this makes a Greenseer one of the most powerful beings in all of Westeros. There's also a cost to all this power. The three-eyed crow tells Bran that he's lived for 1,000 years, though many fans believe he's referring to how long the position itself has existed rather than his personal lifespan. Bloodraven was born in 175 AC, and A Dance with Dragons takes place around 300 AC, which means he's only about 125 years old in the books, though that's still far beyond a normal human lifespan. The weirwood sustains him. He doesn't need to eat or drink as Leaf, one of the Children of the Forest, explains, but he's trapped there, his body merged with the tree, unable to leave the cave. And there's a psychological cost too. When Bloodraven tells Bran that he has his own ghost, a brother that he loved, a brother that he hated, a woman he desired, and that through the trees he sees them still but can never reach them. It's one of the most poignant moments in the series. Imagine having the power to witness any moment in history, to watch the people you loved living their lives, but being completely unable to interact with them, unable to change anything. You're a ghost watching the world go by, accumulating centuries of memories and knowledge but cut off from human connection. The transformation from Bloodraven to the three-eyed crow represents a fundamental change in purpose. As Bloodraven, Brynden Rivers was a political creature, a player of the Game of Thrones who used every tool at his disposal, including his nascent magical powers, to protect the realm and keep the Targaryens in power. He was ruthless, willing to break sacred oaths and commit kinslaying if he believed it served the greater good. His focus was entirely on the present and near future, on stopping rebellions and maintaining stability. As the three-eyed crow, his perspective expands to encompass centuries, even millennia. He can see the dance of the dragons, the conquests, events from the Age of Heroes. He understands the cyclical nature of history in ways that no human possibly could. His focus shifts from politics to something much larger: the threat of the long night returning, the army of the dead, the existential danger to all life in Westeros. This is why he spends decades reaching out through dreams, searching for someone with the gift who can carry on after him. He finds that person in Bran Stark, a boy who gains the power of green sight after falling from a tower, who has the blood of the first men and seems to have stronger natural gifts than any Greenseer in generations. The three-eyed crow guides Bran north over the course of years, arranging for Jojen Reed, another boy with prophetic green dreams, to help guide him. When Bran finally reaches the cave, Bloodraven begins training him immediately, teaching him to use his powers, to look through the weirwoods, to master skin changing. But there's a darker edge to all of this that many fans have picked up on. The three-eyed crow's motivations aren't entirely clear. Is he purely trying to save the realm from the army of the dead? Or is there something else going on? Some fans have theories that Bloodraven is manipulating events on a massive scale, possibly for centuries, working toward goals we don't fully understand. After all, this is a man who spent his human life as the greatest spy master in history, someone who always worked in shadows and played complex long games. There's also the question of what happened to Euron Greyjoy. In the books, there are hints that Euron might have been another person the three-eyed crow tried to recruit. Euron has dreams of flying and of the three-eyed crow, much like Bran. His sigil is a single eye surrounded by two crows. He seems to have greensight abilities that he shouldn't possess, and he appears to have known about his brother Balon's death before he should have. Some fans theorize that Euron was Bloodraven's first choice of apprentice, that he received some training but was rejected or cast aside, possibly because Bloodraven realized Euron would use the power for evil purposes. If true, this would explain Euron's obsession with magic and his descent into madness. What's particularly interesting is how House of the Dragon recently confirmed what book readers had theorized for over a decade. In the Season 2 finale, during Daemon Targaryen's visions at Harrenhal, he sees a man sitting merged with a weirwood tree, with a raven appearing from him. The man has a distinctive red birthmark on his cheek in the shape of a raven. This is clearly Bloodraven, and it's the first time the TV adaptations have explicitly connected Brynden Rivers to the three-eyed raven figure. It validates years of fan theories and makes the connection canon for viewers who might have missed it before. The implications of this connection are profound. It means the mysterious figure who guided Bran Stark, who helped him discover Jon Snow's true parentage and the origins of the Night King, was once a flesh and blood man who fought in civil wars, loved and lost, made terrible choices in the name of duty, and paid a heavy price for them. It grounds the mystical elements of Game of Thrones in the historical realities of Westeros. The three-eyed raven isn't some abstract magical entity. He's Brynden Rivers, a character with his own complex history and motivations. It also raises questions about how much of history Bloodraven has influenced. We know he had greensight powers even as a young man, probably from early childhood. How many of his decisions as Hand of the King were influenced by prophetic visions? When he appeared at White Walls with an army at exactly the right moment, was that just excellent spycraft, or did he see the future and know exactly when to strike? The song about him, A Thousand Eyes in One, might be more literal than anyone realized. Through ravens, through weirwoods, through dreams, Bloodraven could have been watching and influencing events for over a century. There's also the question of his role in putting Aegon V on the throne. The Great Council chose Egg, but was that really a free choice? We know Bloodraven had agents everywhere. We know he could enter dreams. Did he manipulate events to ensure his great-nephew, the boy he'd met at White Walls, would become king? Aegon V went on to be one of the better kings in Targaryen history, beloved by the common people for his reforms. But he also died at Summerhall in a mysterious tragedy involving an attempt to hatch dragon eggs. Could Bloodraven have foreseen some of this? Could he have been trying to bring dragons back into the world, knowing they would be needed against the long night? The transformation from Bloodraven to the Three-Eyed Raven also represents the transition from active player to observer and mentor. As Bloodraven, Brynden shaped history directly through his actions, his armies, his spy network. He was a chess master moving pieces across the board. As the Three-Eyed Crow, he is forced into a more passive role. He can see everything, past, present, and future, but he cannot directly intervene. He can only guide, suggest, prepare others to face what's coming. In some ways, this is an even more challenging role. It requires patience that stretches across decades, the ability to work through proxies, and the wisdom to know when and how to share knowledge without overwhelming or corrupting the students he's trying to help. When Bloodraven trains Bran, he's passing on more than just magical techniques. He's passing on the responsibility of being the watcher, the guardian of history and memory. He's preparing Bran to carry an almost unbearable burden, to see terrible things, to know the worst of human nature while maintaining the will to protect humanity anyway. It's a lonely, difficult path, and Bloodraven knows this better than anyone because he's walked it himself. The relationship between Bloodraven and Bran mirrors, in some ways, the relationship between Bloodraven and Egg years before. In both cases, we have a young person with immense potential being shaped by this ancient, mysterious figure. Egg grew up to be king, a good king who tried to help the common people. Bran grows up to become the Three-Eyed Raven himself and eventually, in the show at least, the king of the Six Kingdoms. Whether Bloodraven planned any of this or simply recognized potential when he saw it, we may never know for certain. The duality of Bloodraven's nature, both in Dunk and Egg, and as the Three-Eyed Raven, perfectly encapsulates one of George R.R. Martin's favorite themes. This is a man who committed terrible acts in the name of protecting the realm. He's a kinslayer who broke sacred oaths, but he also prevented civil wars that would have killed thousands. He spent his life and afterlife working to prepare the world for an existential threat most people don't even believe in. Is he a villain or a hero? The answer is probably both, or neither, or something more complex than those simple categories allow. In conclusion, understanding Bloodraven in the tales of Dunk and Egg is essential to understanding the Three-Eyed Raven in Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire. He's not just a magical plot device or a mysterious mentor figure. He's Brynden Rivers, one of the great bastards, a warrior who lost an eye fighting his half-brother, a spy master who built the most extensive intelligence network in Westerosi history, a sorcerer who mastered powers most people didn't believe existed, a hand of the king who ruled in shadow, and eventually a being who transcended normal human existence to become something both more and less than human. His story spans over 125 years of Westerosi history, from the reign of Aegon IV through multiple Targaryen kings, civil wars, plagues, and ultimately beyond the wall, where time itself seems to work differently. He represents the intersection of magic and politics, the long view of history versus immediate necessity, and the question of how far someone should go to protect the realm. Whether his actions were ultimately good or evil, necessary or unforgivable, may never be fully answered. But his influence on the world of Westeros is undeniable, and his transformation from Bloodraven to the Three-Eyed Raven is one of the most fascinating character journeys in all of fantasy literature. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Bloodraven's character, let me know in the comments what other characters or storylines you'd like me to explore next. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content about the world of A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones. Until next time, stay curious, and remember, the realm has few true heroes, only people doing what they think is right with the tools they have available, for better or worse.